Hello, hello, hello. Wow, that's too big. You never want to see yourself that big. That's like you attacked Chicago and like you're crawling up the Sears Tower. Anyway, this is my book, How About Never Is Never Good For You. Look what you're going to get if you buy the book. Well, that's nice. Come on. You get the little cartoon, right? And, you know, I am the cartoon editor of the New Yorker. I do a drawing in your book. Could be make it more valuable. You know, and if so, I would like it back. From New York. Okay, I know all of you aren't going to read the book, so here, I'm going to save you like $19. That's basically it. That's about the author, right? But now, actually, it's paperback. It's cheaper, it's smaller, but it's just as funny, but just in a smaller spot. Okay, it's based on this cartoon. I mean, the title of the book, anyway. You know, me, Pat, all the cartoonists, we do a lot of cartoons. If you're a cartoonist for the New Yorker, you do 10 or 15 cartoons every week. So, you know, being cartoon editor, people often come up to me, like I'll give you an example. I was at a cardiologist, I had an arrhythmia, he didn't know who I was, you know, you're in your underpants and they got you all on the machines and everything. And they want to put you at your ease. So they ask you what you do, and I said, yeah, I'm cartoon editor of the New Yorker magazine. Shuts off all the machines, which I thought I had died, and says, you know, I got an idea for a cartoon. I said, great, I got an idea for a biped. But why don't we go on? Anyway, so that's the cartoon. So what happens is you do a lot of cartoons. This I published in 1993 before I was cartoon editor. You never know what cartoon, you know, is going to actually be a hit or is actually really good, which is weird to say. But the difference between an amateur and a professional is an amateur really likes everything they do. So I didn't know, but it turned out that it got reprinted thousands of times. It's like the cartoon, and I founded the Cartoon Bank so it gets licensed. That's a cartoon that put my daughter through college. Okay, so it's sort of neat because it is in the Yale Book of Quotations. Now, you maybe can't read it because it's a little blurry, but it says, okay, so it says, Bob Mankoff, Robert Mankoff, U.S. cartoonist, 1944, businessman, Thursday's Out, How About Never Is Never Good For You. Next to that, other famous humorist, Mao Zedong. So there, so it's 1944, so yeah, I'm 70. And so here are my 3 jokes about being 70 that I made up. So you can see, so you know, I'm 70. The good news is it could be worse. The bad news is it will be. The good news is 70 is the new 50. The bad news is dead is not the new alive. Okay, when you're 70 and you're a guy, you wake up stiff everywhere but where you want to be. 3 jokes. Okay, so it's been used, it's like a catchphrase now. In 2008, Nancy Pelosi used it. When the Republicans came in, they said to Obama, you know, how about never is never good for you? You can get it on a T-shirt. Now, here's the deal also. When you get the copyright for a cartoon, you get the copyright for that cartoon as it appears in the magazine. But to protect yourself here, you have to get the trademark and another copyright, and I'm still doing that. And until that happens, you get ripped off. And so you can get the T-shirt. I get no money for that, and I get no money for the thongs. Which is, you know, my lawyers are dealing with them. I can get the free thongs, and it's not worth it. Okay, so I did found the Cartoon Bank, which you can go up online, cartoonbank.com. It's all the 80,000 cartoons that appeared in the New Yorker magazine. And the great thing about the New Yorker, its ethos is that it kept records of everything. So everybody who's ever had a cartoon in the magazine has a scrapbook. But more than the scrapbook, there's 400 volumes describing every cartoon. in multiple ways. So on the Cartoon Bank, originally we just OCR'd that. And see there? See? And when you're dead, they put that other part in, but I'm not dead yet. Here are some of the cartoons I've done. I'm sorry, dear, I wasn't listening. Could you repeat what you said since we've been married? On the one hand, eliminating the middleman would result in lower costs, increased sales, and greater consumer satisfaction. On the other hand, we're the middleman. As a matter of fact, you did catch us at a bad time. And while there's no reason yet to panic, I think it's only prudent we make preparations to panic. Now, a lot of the cartoons, some of the cartoons, people say cartoons are truth. Sometimes they're just made up, sometimes they're jokes. But that's actually my whole philosophy in life. I'm always making preparations to panic. Okay, 1 billion is 1,000 millions. Why wasn't I informed of this? And I was talking with Pat before, and someone asked, well, are the New Yorker cartoons editorial? No, not really, or just in a very oblique way. This is like every time I see some sort of financial scandal and they say it was complicated and somehow it involved long division, and therefore we couldn't understand it. So that's what that cartoon means to me. Now that's product placement. People ask me, well, how do you get ideas for cartoons? Well, I think of them. And really, there's a whole chapter in the book about how cartoonists go about what they do, because the book really is also about creativity as well. And I really do think when you look at and if you read the book and if you think about it, that cartoons, the fact that the cartoonists every week come up with 10 or 15 ideas, it's sort of like a Petri dish to tell you really of how creativity works. Okay, so how did I even think of becoming a cartoonist? Well, I went to the High School of Music and Art for art. High School of Music and Art was on 135th Street and Convent Avenue. Now, they didn't think the name was catchy enough, the High School of Music and Art, and so now they've changed it to LaGuardia High School. But it was a wonderful high school. I went there from 58 to 62. I remember like in 61, we legalized pot, so we were ahead. Okay, there I am. That's me, Robert Mankoff, right there. Okay? But look at this dude. Look at Edward Barak. Oh. Look at Eddie. Man, Eddie. This is 1962. This is the high school photo. Eddie's got a pipe. Is that insane? He's got a pipe. So, because of the internet, when I was writing this book, I wondered, what happened to Eddie? He became the dean of American Pipers. Oh, man. What focus. Just think, if I had had that focus, that could have been me. I could have been the dean. But no, I wasn't. I went, in 62, I went to Syracuse University, where I majored in hair. I tell this incident in the book. Now, I didn't go to any classes at Syracuse. I went to some classes, but it was an era where, the classes were like this, This is what the class is like, and you could go essentially and find out there'd be maybe there'd be a midterm, maybe there wouldn't, maybe there'd only be a final. So this is a sociology class, and this has changed my whole life. And I went to the first class, like this. And then I found out what the textbook was, and I never went to another class. And then the night before, I took amphetamines and read the textbook, which was really standard procedure. And but I'm late because I'm crazy, and I'm even more hippified, and I'm going to reenact this whole thing for you. So I get to the test late, and I run to sit down. Everybody is already there, scribbling away in their blue books, and I take one and scribble also because I'm on amphetamines. And I'm scribbling away, actually scribbling, and the teacher comes over and he looms over me and Because after all, I've never been to class. And he says, "Who the hell are you?" And I paused with a beat and said, "You know, I could very well ask you the same question." And that was the moment that changed my life. Because that was the power of humor. Because the whole class laughed. Everybody was cowering. Everybody was, ooh, there's so things, you know what you grew up with. Things were going to be on your permanent record. Well, now this was my permanent record. Everything had turned around. But it was really this revelatory moment of what humor could do, how it could turn the tables, how it could be a type of courage, how it could be your identity. It could be who you were, and it could matter to you. So then I had to avoid the Vietnam War. I had to do a lot of things so I wouldn't die. But I was also interested in psychology. That was actually like psychology and philosophy. I got A's in. Those were the only two courses I got A's in. So I went to graduate school in experimental psychology. And what I did was, it was called behaviorism, and we put animals in things like this, and we did things to them that are now prohibited by the Geneva Convention. But mainly what we did to them was we gave them pellets of food when they pressed the bar. And the genius of behaviorism, the whole thing was sometimes you'd give them pellets every time they pressed the bar and sometimes variably. And you found out that if you gave them pellets all the time, and you stopped giving them pellets, they'd stop pressing the bar. But if you had intermittent schedules of reinforcement, you could make behavior incredibly persistent. And I'll show you why that's important. Anyway, I quit because in my book, my pigeon died, my rat died. I might have something to do with the amphetamines. But, and I had always wanted to be a cartoonist. So I had always wanted to be a cartoonist. But it wasn't like now where people were asking you early on, oh, what do you want to be? You've got to go through this thing. It was the 60s. I was sort of wandering. But then when eventually I was on the cusp of my PhD. I mean, I had all the credits for my PhD. But even though I was on the cusp of my PhD, it was the world's longest cusp. It was a cusp of humongous dimension. So I quit. I told my parents, I'm not going to be a psychologist, and that was very sad to my parents. Being Jewish, they thought I'd be some sort of ologist. Some sort of ologist. And they weren't buying cartoonologists. And I told my father that, and my parents were born in 1907 and 1908. They had seen hard times. They really thought, they actually would say, my mother would say, we don't care if you're a garbage man as long as you're the best garbage man. And I said to my mother, it's New York City. There are over 12,000 sanitation workers. It's going to be really hard to be the best. That's going to be tough. And then, my father thought about it after a while. I said I wanted to be a cartoonist, and he said, for the New Yorker, he said, they already have people who do that. I said, yeah, but one of them might die. Anyway, I persisted, and this is the first cartoon I ever sold, not to the New Yorker, to the Saturday Review, 1974. It shows Superman at a personnel thing that says, faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, no steno or short amp. Anyway, that's how long it was. Well, it was amazing because I had quit and I actually sold a cartoon, and that was an amazing thing. That was a reinforcement. That was like the rat pressing the bar and getting a reinforcement. And I started selling intermittently cartoons to other magazines as well, but not the New Yorker. I sold this cartoon. Please tell the king I remember the punchline. So I was selling cartoons, okay? But then I realized I was in the same situation, getting intermittently reinforced, and I persisted, and I was sending cartoons to the New Yorker every week. I was getting rejected, between 1974 and 77, thousands of cartoons. Kept getting this. We regret we are unable to use the enclosed material. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to consider it. And then finally in 1977, that changed to this. Now that's not true, but that's what I thought in my mind, anyway. And then 3 years later, I got a contract from the New Yorker. Now this is interesting because the contracts in the New Yorker came out. That's really interesting. I blurred out the part about the drugs, the money, the women, and everything. But look at this part. This is interesting. For any idea drawing. So nowhere in this contract to be a cartoonist for the New Yorker is there the word cartoon. Because that's the essence of the New Yorker cartoons. It's all about ideas. So I had a lot of ideas as a cartoonist. I published 950. In the book, I dedicate the book to everyone who's ever done a cartoon for the New Yorker and anyone who ever will. Okay? And here I am. But then in 1997, I become cartoon editor of the New Yorker magazine. And that's in the book, too, like how that happened. Last year, when the book came out, there was a 60 Minutes piece about me in it. By the way, there's an HBO documentary called Very Semi-Serious, which will be released December 7th, which is also about me and the New Yorker cartoonist, which is a wonderful film. But I'm going to play a little clip from the documentary, sort of to show what goes on every Tuesday. Every Tuesday, it's open call, which means anybody can see me to show me their cartoon. This is sort of how it goes.
Hey, how are you? Paul. Robert. Well, I suppose you came in here to show me cartoons.
Every Wednesday, a nervous band of ink-stained wretches gathers at Bob Mankoff's office.
So let's see what you got here.
All right.
Hoping against hope to sell him a cartoon. As for what they're paid, no one's talking.
How many have been accepted, I really don't know.
There's the grizzled veteran Sam Gross, who figures he's submitted 30,000 cartoons, give or take. 30,000?
Yeah.
Many consider this his masterpiece. A dog at Heaven's Gate asking, "Is there any chance of getting my testicles back?"
I still have to push the envelope.
Sam has always pushed the envelope, things that you couldn't quite do. How you doing?
Very well.
There's always a little preliminary chit-chat.
How you been?
All right.
Farley.
Farley Katz specializes in the far out in both cartoons and facial hair.
So what's going on with that mustache? Are you still entering the contest?
No, I retired from the circuit. This is all like a recreational mustache.
Okay.
And then Mankoff speed reads the rough sketches.
This is just too awkward to draw.
Most get rejected. He's seen the idea in one form or another before.
You know, like, whenever they open your bag at an airport.
Carolina Johnson has an airport security cartoon with the TSA guy saying, "You can pack this back up now." Yeah. Emily Flake has a joke featuring both King Kong and Godzilla.
The two heavy hitters in the monster world.
It's as simple as that.
Maybe it's just a day for facial hair, but Joe Data seems to be a contender with a Tarzan cartoon.
The apes are saying, we found you and raised you as one of us. So we were just wondering, at what point did you learn to shave?
Can I say, I have researched this. There is no iteration of Tarzan in literature, comic books, or movies in which he has facial hair. It makes no sense.
Right.
Here's some of the stuff around.
This is just stage one, thinning out the candidates to take to the magazine's editor.
This is a little bit too straightforward.
He's largely non-committal, pleasant but blunt.
It won't look right in our magazine.
When a drawing simply isn't good enough.
We're not that impressed. Okay, next. It doesn't have enough charm.
So that's sort of what goes on. I mean, it's really condensed, and really, I think if you want to see a deeper portrait, and that show was great, the film is something to see, because you really get behind the lives of the cartoonists. But basically, what I do more than that, so there's this Tuesday meeting where you're interacting with the people. And old guys like Sam, who has not done 30,000 cartoons for the New Yorker, he's done 30,000 cartoons since he started cartooning. And funny thing is that Morley Safer could not actually get out the sentence, Do you think I could get my testicles back? They had to actually piece that together. Just kept laughing. But basically what I do is I see 1,000 cartoons, not only from our regular cartoonists, and seeing cartoons and looking like that is not what you're experiencing, which is unmediated. You're just looking at the cartoons. I am evaluating the cartoons. So this is an interesting image. It's Hogarth, the laughing audience. Okay, everyone is laughing except this guy. Okay, this guy is the critic. So that's really the position I am. So if I showed you all the cartoons that you've laughed at now, and I said rate them, you know what I mean? I say you only have 4. Which ones? All of a sudden, you could do that, and you would pick the ones you like, but you wouldn't be laughing anymore. Okay, you wouldn't be laughing. And it's amazing people actually can do that. But so that's my job, which is different. It's still a great job, but my job is not to entertain myself. My job is to evaluate the cartoons based on what I like and what David Remnick would like, and the whole idea of the New Yorker magazine as sort of pushing the envelope on what you might think is interesting, but also considering what you're going to like. Okay, so I got to watch out I don't become this guy, though. So one of the things that will happen, and for instance happens all the time in the caption contest, I think Larry Wood, who will maybe talk a little bit, who has won the caption contest 6 times, and maybe he's going to win it 7 times, is that I do experiments where at the 5,000 captions come in, I will take samples. I will have samples, and lately I've been sending them out with a special computer program to all the winners and finalists of the contest to evaluate. What they do is they look at the image and 2 captions, and they keep choosing, okay? Now, I've already selected ones that are pretty good. It's a hard thing to do, the caption contest, and yet from all these people who've won, I get things like, none of them were funny. These are terrible. Because now they're evaluating. See what I mean? Now they're evaluating. Okay, the thing, when you saw, the different cartoons come in, so some cartoons are observational. They are true. It's sort of like the Carolita Johnson about the TSA guy. And after you saw a gag, you wouldn't think that was funny because you're expecting a punchline rather than a comment. So when I'm looking at cartoons, this is a little chart I have in the book, sort of like incongruity, weirdness. Now, there are cartoons that are just, they're mild, but they're true, like this cartoon by David Cypress. I'll read it because it's so blurry. It says, "My boss is always telling me what to do." Yeah, you know what I mean? This is the type of idiotic complaints that people make. Yeah, that's what bosses do. But it's rooted in reality. And in some ways, it cannot pull the string that the gag can. You know what I mean? It gets a different type of laugh. Let's take this cartoon by Leo Cullum, which says, very impressive. Okay, it shows a cowboy, and here is a cow. Hey, let me see if you're getting this right. Are you getting this right? Yeah, you are getting this right. Good job. Okay, so here, look, this is not reality. It shows a cowboy and a cow, and it's saying, very impressive. I'd like to have about 5,000 more like you. Okay, that's a joke. If that doesn't work just as a joke, there's no reason for it. Because it's not really I mean, you could have it in a textbook where people will use it to talk about personnel and stuff, but really it's just a Leo Cullum gag. Then you have weird stuff. Then you have weird stuff like this. Okay, these are all guys, they're all like playing the saxophone, and this guy is in a suit and he's saying, "Damn it, Hopkins, didn't you get our memo?" Okay, now, cartoons like that you can't get. In other words, there's nothing to get, really. But you can enjoy craziness. It's the difference between James Thurber and, let's say, a Charles Addams, where you bring the things together. And the type of humor that people like whether you like, really tight jokes where I understand it and I can explain it to someone. For instance, here's a caption contest, and here's 2 different jokes. One, so you have guys at a conference room, a boardroom, and they all have parrots on their shoulder. Okay, so that's the incongruity. Now, one joke might be, we've got to think of a better way to record our meetings. That makes sense, and it makes sense, right, completely, because parrots repeat things. Another joke might be, Shut up, Bob. Everybody knows your parrot's a clip-on. And that's weirder and doesn't have the same type of resolution. And in other words, we have scripts for parrots repeating, but the idea that they're wearing them, okay. So it's apples and oranges and kiwis, and I don't want to. Okay, what goes into me thinking about it? Well, one thing is originality is overrated. People don't really like originality in jokes. There's a little bit of originality, all those good news, bad news jokes. In other words, I made them up. They are new. You wouldn't have found them, but they're based on a template. So people like something novel within a cocoon of familiarity. So look, this is 1931. This is the first desert island cartoon. I claim this island for the USA and the Alfred Whipple, company. Okay, so that's the first thing. See, it's interesting also, when the cliche starts, the island is pretty big. You know what I mean? Because you got to live there. Okay, in 1951, that cliche becomes about sex. Gosh, Mr. Maxwell, with all those other girls on the boat, I never thought you'd give me a tumble. Well, okay. By 1997, it's a joke that's relevant to now. It's an immigration joke. What's our immigration policy? Okay, originality also. I did this cartoon. It's been done. Let me through on the victim. So David Cypress, who does a lot of cartoons, submitted the exact same cartoon to me like a year ago. He's not plagiarizing. Cartoonists come up with the same ideas all the time. Every cartoon that we pick at the cartoon meeting, we check against all 80,000 cartoons that have ever run. Often we find that they've been done before in our archive. Cartoonists themselves do their own cartoons over again without even realizing it. Okay. This is cartoon submitted the same week. I know where he is. I want to know why. It's a Waldo cartoon. And okay, where is he? So that I'm just pointing out that often a cartoon will appear in the New Yorker and someone will say, "Oh, you stole that." Cartoonists do things all the time. Rule 3: play favorites. Well, you play favorites because, first of all, they've earned it because they've been in the magazine. Also because it's like a sitcom, right? The first time you see the sitcom, you might not think it's that funny once you get to know the characters. So we do cartoons, we do favor our own cartoonists who have been there. So this is Roz Chast, Insomnia Jeopardy. That's the one I like, ideas I have for a screenplay. This is Drew Dernovich on the same thing. When I can't sleep, I find it helpful to go through my ideas. This is mine, I can't sleep, I got this incredible craving. Okay.
I'm going to explain a cartoon that was popular, made the rounds of Facebook. And,
I'll explain this after.
Seems to have struck a chord with people, which was this one of a guy wearing the dog cone around his neck and saying, I was looking back at some of my old notebooks, and the way it seems to have started was I was in an airport at one point and wrote down an idea for meditation with a shock collar. So I think that was the first time that I had the idea of crossing some sort of pet training device with humans and with attention, I guess. Up to the shock collar idea sort of worked its way through my brain for a while, and I started playing around with the idea of the RCA Victor dog who sits next to the gramophone, and I was using the cone of the gramophone as a cone around his neck. The only thing I came up with is he's saying to another Dalmatian, "Don't ask." So probably better that you don't either. The next page is a dog wearing a lampshade around his neck, and the other dog is saying, "Oh, Neville, you crazy party animal." It was a trope in Garfield when I was growing up that a party animal always wears the lampshade on his head. Then that was all. Nothing else in the rest of this book. Nothing else came of that until a few weeks later, it just pops up out of nowhere. I guess I had been thinking about dogs because I have a guy using a remote to turn a dog on and off or to make a dog sit, and it says Dogmatic. And then out of that, just suddenly I have it's supposed to keep me from compulsively checking my phone. And unfortunately, I was playing around with the idea, seeing where I could go with it, and unfortunately it also says licking my scab and licking my butthole. So you can edit that out. There it is. He's at a party. He has the cone around his neck. He's talking to a woman. That was basically the idea. And it looks like it just appeared out of nowhere, but I think that it was all sort of sifting through my brain. So out of each notebook, sometimes I'll have 3 or 4 cartoons out of each notebook, and sometimes there'll be notebooks that are just vast, barren deserts of terrible ideas that may someday become better ideas.
That's a lesson for that. I want to get to the interview. I'm going to go fast. Okay, so topicality. This is a cartoon Roz did about 7 for a workout, which is okay. I edit cartoons. That originally came in as a spelling bee for aliens. I said, let's make it like this so people could understand it. Location, 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 in terms of the choice, is that it's the New Yorker. People are very sensitive to what's in the New Yorker. Look at this cartoon. Okay. Look at this person reacted to it. Another joke on all white males, it's nice. I'm sure to be young and rude, but someday you'll be old unless you drop dead as I wish. Okay, look at this cartoon, discouraging data on the antidepressant. Here's the responses we get. I like animals. I don't want this. That doesn't seem funny to me. I don't like to see animals suffer, even in cartoons. I tell them they can't suffer. Okay? Look at this. I've only been gluten-free for a week, but I'm already really annoying. Okay? This person wants us to walk a mile in her shoes. I think that would be a good thing because you'd be a mile away from her and you'd have her shoes. Okay, look at but sometimes people just don't get the New Yorker cartoon.
Look at this cartoon in the New Yorker. I don't get this.
Me neither.
And you're on the fringe of the humor business. Hey, George, look at this.
That's cute.
You get it?
No, never mind.
Come on, we're 2 intelligent people here. We can figure this out. Now we got a dog and a cat in an office.
It looks like my accountant's office, but there's no pets working there.
The cat is saying, I've enjoyed reading your email.
It's got something to do with that 42 in the corner.
That's a page number.
Well, I can't crack this one.
Okay, he couldn't crack it. I'm going to end now with saying sometimes the very best caption for a cartoon is the simplest. It sort of makes you stop and think. Okay? So now, to make us stop and think more and make me stop and think, welcome Pat Byrnes, who's going to interview me. Thank you. Hi, Pat. I sit here.
You're sitting there so no one sees our
I
microphones.
already made a mistake.
That's okay, Roz. Good to see you, Bob.
Good to
nice
see
to
you.
meet you. All right.
Let's begin with a prepared
soup.
question. I'd like to rebut that.
But carry on. So you're more than just a prankster, jokester. You got a mission here, don't you? What do you? I mean, there's a whole philosophy behind a lot of the.
Well,
way you approach humor.
I think the philosophy is, it's about the book is that I feel actually really passionate about the cartoons for the New Yorker, the institution. The book tells you that. And I feel, and the book is partly about the continuing of the tradition with a new generation of people, so that it didn't just become a museum. And partly the mission, what's the mission? The mission is...
Well, you kind of suggested a couple times, like in your book, you talk about how, Max Eastman, his connecting humor with play.
Yeah.
And you've said that being funny is being awake. Do you see that as a way of trying to get people open up?
I think that being funny is not just the children's table of life. In other words, it's actually a necessary part of life as a perspective, as a way to live, and that why is it so damning if you tell someone they have a bad sense of humor or no sense of humor? What does it actually say about a person? It says that they're rigid, that they're ideological, that they can't possibly see other perspectives. So I think that's important, but I also think it's important. I was reading something about E.B. White, and he said something like, there's an idea that humorists are very sad people, that they're clowns with breaking hearts. And he said, there's a grain of truth with that, but it's poorly put. It's that there's a deep strain of melancholy running through all of human life. And that humorists are more sensible to it, and they compensate for it sort of actively and positively. And I think that's what humor does. It compensates actively and positively for the sadness that permeates life, or just really mostly maybe the annoyance.
Well, yeah, that's true enough. So do you ever try to annoy people?
What's that?
Do you ever try to annoy people with your cartoons, just to rattle them?
Well, what I do is my mantra is leave no joke unjoked. So just don't think it, and provided it's not really going to hurt someone, or that's not the thing. So let's say I was in a Starbucks in Seattle, and it was empty. It was just me, and I said, I want a latte, and they said, oh, fine. What's your name? I said, what do you need my name for? I said, because we have to put it on the cup. They said, why do you have to put it on the cup? I'm the only one here. And they said, come on, this is what we do. This is the protocol. I said, okay, my name is Steve, but that's not my real name. Does that matter? So maybe it's fucking with people a little bit, but it's actually waking them up. It's actually waking them up to the quotidian that numbs us all the time, to all the things that we just go through, or just even being aware. I just like fooling around when we're sitting in the where we are in the whatever the hospitality suite over at Whitehall. Very nice people, young people there. I said, do we got to move? Do we got to go now, or how far is this place? And the guy said, no problem. We have wiggle room. And I said to him, so let's wiggle. Just like this, you know what I mean? Just looking at language. We're like, so anybody, you, me, when we see wiggle room, when we see that phrase, we want to make it, or I just like to look at phrases. So for a while in email, people were telling me, when there was something going on that could be, no problem. They say, no problem. All of a sudden, I noticed they started saying, no worries. Now it's no worries.
Australian
no
influence.
problem. And as soon as someone says no worries, I worry. It's like when people say, money isn't the problem, it's the problem.
So you're, you took off on the playful thing earlier, and I've completely forgotten the quote that you had in the book. You said that the default mode in life is not play, it's seriousness.
Yeah, the default mode is serious. That's why, for the most part, when you get ideas, you're alone. The default mode in life is you've got to get to the plane, you've got to find the cab, in other words, you've got to act seriously. That's how we basically...
You can sing.
We basically don't joke our way through life.
Yeah, well, you do.
No, I do, but it's only in reaction. I still have to. So I joke. I'm actually worried all the time. So when I said, it's only prudent we make preparations to panic. That's what I'm doing all the time. But humor gives us a perspective. So when I make a joke on it, when I make a joke on how I'm feeling, on the neuroticism or the anxiety or anything like else, it not only relieves it, but it also shows it to be silly.
But yeah, when you can do that to yourself and joke to yourself, but you're joking with other people. Do you think there's something empathetic there that you're bringing them into your awakeness? I mean, do you have to be funny in order to be awake? I think there's the part of just having a good time, like we were having in the room, and it was all clean
in the green room, and then I always like to put all the stuff in perspective. So, and also make jokes. So I was going to say, I was fooling around. I said, instead of me doing this presentation, I could just pop up on my Mac Air the text between me and my wife about our dishwasher, which would be funny in itself. Or I could look at the thing where I saw the room I was in, or there was a room that it had star, and then it had, let's face it, a piece of laser paper that said Bob Mankoff. It said star, anyway. So I took a picture of it to my wife, and I was trying to think of what to say to her in the text, and I And so I ended up texting her, just 1 star? You know, so this is a little bit what I mean about being, how did I feel, you know, just this humor is a type of, look, first of all, it can be a lot of things. It can be lousy things. It can be just mean. It can be ridicule. It can be horrible. You know, we could talk about that. But at its highest level, I find it self-directed to yourself and enables you to sort of relieve your anxiety, but also just in a way the silliness of the green room. But I was really happy because I asked one of the guys here. I said, "Well, where's the men's room?" And he said, "Oh, right there. I have my own men's room." That's great.
It was behind your star. And so
That
right.
was and you can use it if you know. It's like not like I won't share.
Yeah, that's okay. I did.
Okay. You should have asked.
That's probably.
You should have asked.
That's too much.
I don't mind you using it, but you should have asked.
I think they steered me in there. There was a
Now
toilet
I'm
in there,
pissed.
they
Forget
said, but all right, we're getting into too much information.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to wrest this conversation over to the theme of the festival, the citizens. So how do you see do you see a role for the cartoonist in society other than being a heckler?
Well, it's important.
It is important.
Because much more harm is done by respect than disrespect. Much more harm is done by respect. You know, so humor is a leveler of people. When you're making fun, whoever it is, if it's Obama, if it's Bush, or anything, it's dun, 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 dun. They get up, they got the lectern, they've got people, they've got the white papers and everything. Really, when you think about it, why should we ever question them? Why? They're smart, aren't they? They probably went to better schools than us. They're certainly more articulate. They got elected. We didn't get elected to anything. And so maybe we should just do what they said. But no, because when we joke, we level them, and also the jokes are a bullshit detector. The jokes pierce through that facade of Orwellian speak. You know what I mean? The targeting. Whether it's, the drone strikes are targets. Oh, that's nice. They're targets. They're not people. They just have those rings around. You know what I mean? All the way the words are used. So even though when we make jokes and we fool around with those words, we reveal the words. Also, I do feel that the humor it's sort of the voice of the people. It's the voice of the democracy, in a way. And but it also has its limits, in that after the jokes, you still have to make the arguments. Once Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert makes the joke, in the end, someone has to make the real argument, on whatever side you're on, about the war in Iraq or Syria or global warming. You have to actually make the arguments, but it opens it up. So I do absolutely think that that part of being a citizen is being awake to humor, which in this case is true.
The New York Times had a piece about a month or so ago called "The Humor of the Unfunny Joke," or "Welcome to." Anyway, but they talked about in there how people like Colbert and
Stewart and other people.
And these are the people that are saying the things that the scripted politicians cannot say, but they're speaking the truth and getting into actual real policy things.
See, the thing, but I think it's a mistake to think of humor is the truth. It can be a falsehood. It's not the argument. I mean, in other words, you think it's the truth if it's on your side, but it's part of the dialogue. So one of the benefits of Trump is not just for cartoonists. But because even though you don't like him, he actually is speaking as an ordinary person in a way. He's speaking in an ordinary way. That's part of what, I mean, he's speaking in an ordinary way. And in a way, even though he was the last person I would vote for, he has revealed, sometimes by being funny in his own way, the hollowness of the boilerplate that everyone is saying. Everyone's prepared remarks. So when he's nasty even about Ben Crosby, it could be a total fabrication. Maybe it could be. Well, there was a really good cartoon in the New Yorker by Paul Noth. I love this. It's one of my favorite cartoons about Trump. So it's Trump with the generals. And he says, why don't we nuke Iran and then build something beautiful? Now, that's sort of funny. It's funny, but it's in a way, probably a lot of people actually feel that that's what America should basically do. And when you look back into when you look back into the Vietnam War, who was the general? It wasn't Westmoreland. It was the other crazy guy who wanted to turn Vietnam into a parking lot or something like that by nuking.
I was like, somebody was offering a name. Who? Curtis LeMay? Yeah, Curtis LeMay. That's right. He headed SAC, right? That's good. That's the intelligent audience that I bring out. I think we wanted to have some time for some audience questions. And the one question you get asked all the time is the one that probably 90+% of the audience came here to learn the answer to. You have a whole chapter about it in your book on how to win the caption contest. And in your podcast, you've even answered the question, how can I win the caption contest? You said, and I quote, you can't. Unless your name is Larry Wood, and you live in Chicago, and so on and so on. And well, it so happens that we are in Chicago. You check your GPS. That's
Where
true.
is Larry?
And Larry Wood should be here tonight. Larry, are you here tonight? There's Larry Wood right there. This man's won it 6 times.
Look at that. Look at that.
And he's nominated again. So if anyone knows how to win the caption contest, I'll give you a moment there to take out a pen. Larry, could you tell us, like in 10 words or less, how does somebody win?
This is harder than winning the caption
contest.
Well, you just have to buy the upcoming New Yorker issue. It's going to be on the newsstands, the best cartoons of the year. And I do have an essay in there, and all is revealed. So if you buy the magazine, you'll know.
Absolutely. Larry Wood.
Caption contest champion, Larry Wood. Buy the special issue.
Yep.
And the next question we have is from somebody. Who's got a question? We have a microphone here.
Yeah, go ahead. The cartoonist. Who does the cartoons, the ones that have to be captioned? Well, as I said, the cartoonists do 10 or 15 cartoons every week. So originally we just, the one we didn't like, we would take the caption off. That makes sense in that while there's an incongruity involved. So for example, on the parrot one, which actually is a perfectly good cartoon by Drew Dernovich, his one was something like, that's not mine set to vibrate. So, you know what I mean? So one of the things is by the cartoonist solving it, we know that there's a solution. The caption contest is actually very difficult to do because you're looking at an image that isn't yours. You have to sort of resolve, the various, incongruities. So sometimes, like in Larry's case, but sometimes not. It's a solution that we appreciate without us really thinking it's a great cartoon. A follow-up. I like this. Trump wouldn't put up with this. One question, thank you. Okay.
Here we have a microphone coming.
Yeah, what is the difference between the printed and online version?
Yeah, I mean,
one is printed, the other's online.
Has that influenced you in any way, that how many people are now looking at it alone rather than, on an image rather than a magazine? Is there a difference for you?
Everything's going to be fine, honey. Everything is going to be fine. A few people's minds will be destroyed because, they looked at the image first or it was a screen and it went off. Everything's going to be fine. No, I mean, I don't look, so here's the thing. Here's the thing in terms of what's happening. There's print and there's culture. Culture. The New Yorker is culture. Okay? Culture is at war with technology. How would I mean by that? I mean is the Condé Nast, the New Yorker, we have these fantastic assets, all the cartoons. Well, here's the photographs. What do people want to look at? Crap.
Cats.
They want to look at cats. They want to look at Icahn has cheeseburger. They want to look at lolcat. They want to look at when you're on the weather. When you look at the weather, clickbait. Can you believe there's a shark that ate an automobile? That's what they want, and that's what's actually going on. That is the difficulty of what's happening, and it's not necessarily a terrible thing. It's what's happening in the commerce of society, in which let's say there's the Wall Street Journal. Whatever you put, it's a respected thing, it's a legitimate journalist, and there's Business Insider, which is a good site and everything, but what are people looking at in Business Insider? The 10 stupidest things you can put on your resume, including lolcats. But so I'm saying this is the thing, the New Yorker, all of these cultural institutions are surviving, but they're in a tough spot. In other words, they're in a tough spot because these institutions used to be supported by advertising. And now, so the New Yorker in the 1960s had 240 pages. On the wonderful Adobe Caslon columns was an escalator that you went up and down like you do with Saks, and you bought things. Okay, well, so much of that has gone away and it's never coming back. So I do think the New Yorker will survive and everything, but that's the problem.
Do you think there'll be a hunger, like a cultural hunger for real substance, real content?
I think there's a cultural hunger for it, but there's not much money in it. Not much money in terms of the huge amounts of money. The huge amounts of money.
People are willing to pay.
Yeah, well, people will be willing to pay, and they are. I'm just saying, when you actually look at the amount of money Google and Facebook and Apple are making, the amount. And there's nothing wrong with the amount. I'm just saying everything else becomes a rounding error for people who are interested in let's say, monetize, because everything is monetizing it. So that's the difficulty for the survival of culture. Now, of course it's going to survive because there's a huge population and there'll be millions of people. But there won't be the billions of people. There's a billion people on Facebook, and they want to see those cats. You know what? I want to see them too. I mean, I love, are me and my wife sending back and forth New Yorker cartoons? No, we're sending back pictures of our cats.
Over here on this side.
Yeah, go ahead.
I teach high school at a pretty highly competitive high school where everybody's now in the middle of college applications, and the seniors across the United States are pretty much worried about their future and where they're going. And I was really lucky to be at the New Yorker Festival and see the film Seriously Unfunny. And I'd watch it with your children because what I found was many things, but among the things it was a celebration of quirkiness and of these distinctive personalities. And it was this reminder to me that the world should have room for these cartoonists in your camp who only do what they do because of the unique way that their personality is. And I thought it was just, a previous remark you made, that's a testimonial to the way in which we don't want to sort of make everybody look the same and sound the same.
I couldn't agree more, because you're talking about the quirkiness, and what we see, especially in elite institution, is the homogenization of education and intellect. There's a book out, I think, Nation of Sheep or Education, something about a professor who talks about all the people coming through Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, the homogenization of it. And I recently read The Wright Brothers by David McCullough. Now here were these brilliant guys who were quirky and passionate. And thank God they never went to Princeton, Yale, or Harvard.
Get that beaten out of them.
We wouldn't have you know what I mean? So this type of passion for something, it still exists. It still exists in people. And one of the jokes sometimes I make when I go to a high school, I remember I think they wanted to kick me out of one, because I went to my daughter's career, now she's 24 now, but in Hastings on Hudson, where I lived at the time, career day, come and talk, come and talk. And I said, does anybody want to, I said, they didn't want to be a cartoonist. Nobody did. I said, that's too bad, because if you wanted to be a cartoonist, you could quit school right now. Or sometimes when people do, and it'll be like a 9 or 10-year-old kid, and I'll say that, and the mother will say, go one more year just for insurance.
Something to fall back on.
But here's the other thing that people don't see coming like a freight train, which is artificial intelligence and the automation of much intellectual activity. So those kids in school, really, obviously they're going to be the guilds, the lawyers and the doctors. But what you see Watson doing, you know what? Law is rule-based.
Yeah.
Okay? Accounting is rule-based. That's already happening. And so it's going to happen. So all these things, this is one of the questions, what is it going to be left for people to do? Well, you know what? There's still going to be a lot of physical things to do.
Making
I was
coffee.
just watching outside of my hotel a guy, what work is. My wife always reminds me, you don't actually have a job. You don't know what work is, because my wife's a wasp, and so she can just work and work. Okay, I'm going to make a tangential story. This is me and my wife. My wife's a wasp. I'm Jewish, and there's a chapter in the book. This is when we first met, and I thought I was talking to her, and she said, "Why are you arguing with me?" And I said, "I'm not arguing. I'm Jewish." Anyway, Corey Scott Whittier, very smart, runs her own business, works. All she does is work. It stops. It's like, we have to clean out the garage. Why? I thought that's what the garage is for, to put things. Why do we have to clean it out? Because then where are we going to put it? We'll have to get another garage. And then she makes fun of me because I'm from Queens saying garage. Okay. So we moved to the house, and from the house, and of course there's a million boxes. Okay. And I walk by the boxes, and I try not to look at them. And then months go by because we got a lot of things to do, and the boxes are still there, all the boxes. He said, we got to do something about the boxes. We're going to do it this Saturday. So I'm dreading Saturday comes, and we start working, like in the morning, where you take the boxes out, and you find them, and then you got to crush. And see, I'm fine with burning them or something bad. But no, my wife, we have to fold them, and. So we start in the morning, it's 11 o'clock at night, we're still going, I know she's not going to stop. She's not going to stop. I figure, how can I get out? What can I do? I can't say, we got to stop. I know I can't say that. Because then she'll bring up all the other bad things I've done throughout the rest of the day. So I have to figure it out. So I say to her, you hear that whistle? That high-pitched whistle? I said, what whistle? He said, you know the high-pitched whistle that they blow for the factory workers when they let them out. So I got her to laugh. And we went, so what I think in the future is what's going to be left for human beings is creativity. In other words, that is the thing. I deal all the time with algorithms and humor and seeing what the computers can do. And they're never going to be conscious. They're never going to be alive. They're never going to be that. That's this crazy dream of the people in Silicon Valley. Thomas Nagel, a philosopher, once wrote a great essay in 1970 called What Is It Like to Be a Bat? And he already said, we can't know. We can't be like a little person in a bat thing flying around. But we know one thing. It's like something to be a bat. And it's like nothing to be a computer. And we're not nothing. Okay, so in the end, what we will be is what we're meant to be is to do this type of stuff, to the songs and the drama and everything. And that's what I would tell your students. And that involves a little quirkiness. And that's why I want to be president of the United States. Thank you.
And with that, Mr. Mankoff, I believe our hour is up. The next patient is ready to come in.
All right,
Bob
thank you, guys.
Mankoff, king of cartoons.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.